So this is Luke chapter 14, the scripture for May 1st. Having been trained as a mathematician, I'm biased toward ministers along with evangelists who have additional sets of skills rather than just charisma and rhetoric. You see, Luke, as a doctor, has an additional set of skills, and it comes out in this chapter. He doesn't always highlight his medical background, but at the beginning of Luke 14, as well as elsewhere in Luke Acts, there's actually an article that I've attached below in the description about this. He uses accurate medical jargon for that time. Describing the man with dropsy, Luke uses specific medical terminology that doctors would have recognized as like, yeah, that's what we call that. Now, I think this is so important for Christians to understand because there are some Christians who would suggest to you that faith and science are incompatible. But here we see Dr. Luke having his faith in Jesus informed by his knowledge of scientific processes. I think that that's the best way to go about this, is that faith and science work together. So additionally here, we have a question that Jesus puts to the people. Is it lawful to cure on the Sabbath? And I think that's such an important question, an essential one, in fact, in this time of COVID-19, when we're not going to church and instead sheltering in place. We can decide to cure others by continuing to postpone weekly gatherings together. Even on our holy day. You see, is the Sabbath, is our holy day, our day when we normally go to church, is it a day when we gather together, or is it a day when we care for one another? And I think that what Jesus is suggesting here is that more important than gathering together physically is caring for one another, both spiritually and physically. And I think that if there's an opportunity to seek others' well-being by worshiping from our own homes instead of worshiping from a shared sanctuary, I think that's what Jesus would have us do based on this scripture. So Jesus goes on, and I think that some of what he has to say focuses on those who would tend to exalt themselves. Now, as Christians, I think we tend to do this. We tend to exalt ourselves and want ourselves to have a primary seat at the table, whether that's demanding that other people wish us Merry Christmas when we're shopping during the holidays, or whether it's demanding that we get certain days off from work or from school, or certain tax-exempt statuses or tax breaks. There are a number of ways in which Christians have really put ourselves in a very important seat at the table. And I'm not always sure that this is a good thing. You see, Jesus wants us to know that we weren't called to be God's PR firm to the world, marketing God for consumption. No, we're supposed to represent God, but we're not supposed to be the ones that are really, sleeking God down and making God more palatable to people. Rather, we're called to act humbly, allowing Christianity, if necessary, to take a seat at the kids' table. After all, Jesus ate with the rejects. Oh, why do we think that we need to be honored with being treated a certain way in the marketplace, or with some sort of majority religion status? We need to act the same way. And if Jesus ate with the rejects, we need to be comfortable being rejected ourselves. Otherwise, we're not walking in the way of Jesus. Similarly, I think we all experience the temptation to prioritize other things over our faith. Maybe there's a special extracurricular activity that you feel like you need to pursue, or maybe we just need to catch up on our sleep. There are a ton of at least seemingly good excuses for declining God's invitation to this great dinner that God's prepared in worship every week. Don't decline. Rather, recognize that the entire purpose of life is learning how to glorify and enjoy God together with other Christians forever. The more that you delay, and the more that you teach your family and friends by your example that accepting God's invitation can be delayed, the more you model that God's kingdom isn't actually that important to you. And so as we gather remotely, make church a priority. That doesn't mean doing it at the same time that you normally do it on Sunday mornings, but it does mean having it in your weekly schedule for your family. This is the cost of following Jesus. I hope that you have chosen to pursue Christ, and I also hope that you realize it may cost you something. It may cost you everything. All you once held dear, you are called to entrust to God. Otherwise, becoming a disciple, it's meaningless. I wonder, what is it that gets in the way of your discipleship? That's all for Luke chapter 14. On Monday, May 4th, we'll be looking at Luke chapter 15. May God bless you in your reading of Scripture.